Hello, my name is Rob Hirschfeld, and this is a series of one of our series of weekly meetings for the Crowbar 2 design work and planning. This meeting is our planning review meeting, so it's where we kick off a new sprint. It's an hour-long meeting, and the agenda is that we spend 25 minutes reviewing the progress from the last sprint, 10 minutes for process check that we've been using to review bugs, and then 25 minutes of planning for the next sprint. The purpose for this call is really to coordinate work and effort, and then target things that can be done offline. It's not so much for design. We have a Tuesday session that we use for design topics. Those have been really invigorating and really positive. And so I would encourage us to keep that pattern. We'll discuss in the process review if we need to make any changes. These sessions are recorded, obviously. Well, if you're listening to the recording, then they're obviously recorded. With that, any comments before I kick into review? All right, excellent. This sprint just flew by for me. Trying to think. One of the things that we've been focused more on for this last sprint, and I think we put this, was we've been working in Crowbar 1 a bit. So I'm going to split that. I think it makes sense to use this forum for both Crowbar 1 and Crowbar 2 efforts, since it's the same resources. I know for SUSE and for Dell, it's the same resources, so we can do that. Gray or Adam, do you guys want to talk about any Crowbar 1 items for the sprint? Okay, and for reference, we've been working on what will end up being a 1.5 release of Crowbar called Betty, and it looks like we're trying to have it be substantially close to the SUSE code base. That's what Greg's. That's the background on this. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's other significant Crowbar 1 stuff that surfaced in the last week. A lot of it ends up being hardware work for us.
So we did actually try and take that. You're probably aware of this already, actually, if you were CC'd on the bug. We tried to cherry pick the pixie fix for the 6220s, and it broke something for us, so we had to revert it. I can't remember whether you were CC'd on that bug or not.
I didn't realize it. I saw a whole bunch of CCs, and I've been swamped for the last 2 days.
Yeah, I think that might be the case.
Yeah, I do it. Yeah, frankly, the board meeting just kicked my butt. It took a lot longer than I expected, and then I've been recovering.
Oh yeah, congratulations!
Thank you. Actually, I believe a lot of the community was really helpful with me getting on, and thank you. Appreciate it. But I didn't realize they were going to be 7-hour-long board meetings. Looks like that's going to be the normal. Okay. Yeah, sometimes you got to watch out for what you ask for. So we've got the 1.5. Yeah, that might be tricky to cherry pick. It's a good question. Because I don't know how far you guys are off where we were with it. But it seemed like a pretty invasive change. We had a couple of weeks to get it in and test it. Yeah, so okay. The other big change for this is the dev tool flattening, which is the removal of the submodules was a component for this, and so that change should be coming into this in the next sprint. And so if there's somebody, you guys are probably swamped. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it going to be a single pull where I will get all the blank maps in one shot?
That's a good question. You could set it up to do that with the way the flattening is working.
Your workflow will still be about the same as it is today with DevTool. But what will happen is, instead of those being a module, the Crowbar tree gets flattened into one branch called master. And it will have a release, also a directory structure under it to define all the releases that we're dealing with. So all these 30 branches that we have in there that represent all the possible releases of how you go about doing things get flagged into that one kind of directory structure. And then build task was to make sure that all the submodule references got updated. But now you can just use your normal, let me push my changes, my first repo, and then I can do push and pull requests, GitHub or your DevTool or whatever. So all of that stuff hopefully should get moving. So also should, actually will, reduce a lot, all the silly merging stuff that goes on because of that going away.
Right. And one.
We just not have totally comics from one place policy. Well, in the past, because of the submodule referencing and the hierarchical tree is moving things around and all of that, you would get this like one committed master, then 5 commits, and OpenStack going build, and you get another 5 commits, and Cloudera build, and all sorts of other stuff that were just merges. They weren't actually any changes for anything. Above and beyond is the fact that it was all the changes really just the submodule reference.
Right.
And so all that stuff just kind of goes away now, and so hopefully the commit history part, all that stuff get a lot cleaner, so that we can actually do a better job of cherry picking and watching the changes go in. And with this, the next step is to start exposing on the team, particularly the Dell team, rebase actions, so that before they do a final push, they rebase their commit into a single commit and stuff like that. So that should also help some of the history as well.
Right. But along those lines, we're not going to be hiding the bar clamps by switching the submodules around every time you switch branches. So all the bar clamps that you're working on should now stay sort of intact, right?
Yeah.
Because that was one of the artifacts of the way we were doing branching and submodules. That when you switch from Cloudera to OpenStack, it would effectively remove all of the other products' bar clamps.
So that still happens, right? The branches still have an empty branch on them. So it'll assume or create a local empty branch for all the bar clamps that you check out. So when you do a build or when you do a checkout, it will actually put those back to empty. Now, that's really only for build purposes, right? To get a node set. And if that's a big enough issue, we can work on redoing some of the build scripts to make that work right. But because it is now so easy to create a build of whatever you want, you can just throw another set of things into the release directory that has all the bar clamps you want in it. And now you can do a full build of everything if you want to.
Right. That's more what I would expect to handle that, I think.
That particular side effect is mostly just because trying to not do everything at once is kind of a large change, so let's not change how the builder wants to do. So that functionality stays. I agree that it could be changed, but that if you do a build, you just get whatever's out there in there. It may work that way. I don't know. I try to build with explicit release branch kind of combination. And so it tried to enforce those were checked out. And just maybe I didn't run the command enough. It might have actually been nothing if I had let it just say build tree it. But I don't know if the build will understand that. It can actually try and enforce a certain amount of things.
Cool. See the other things that we saw in Crowbar. I'm moving forward. I think the DevTool stuff is going to be exciting, but we're going to want people to check it out and try it in the next sprint. I think Greg and Victor were putting us through some final paces last night. So
one thing to realize is that it will be targeted and restricted currently to only the development and branch set. So we don't currently plan to update that. So
Right. So it's really for active development areas only. That makes sense. Along the Crowbar 2 lines, the auth screen is been moving forward, and so has network APIs and CLIs. So, and this is the network bar clamp. Adam, the expectation is this is really coming items. We like the suggestion you made at the end of the design meeting to put the prefix first, but that'll have some impacts as we update the CLI pieces like that. Network. I'm trying to think of where else. I've been doing some work on API and testing. I still owe people a video about how to do the BDD testing. So I'll try and get to that over the weekend. Okay. All right. So, unless you're thinking of something that I'm not, then we'll flip over and we'll talk about process changes and bugs or things like that we want to cover. I do have actually one more small item, which is that we have the work on the docs is actively progressing. And so if you haven't seen the way the Crowbar 2 docs work, let me see if I have it up. I have my server turned off. Hold on just a moment. I'm just turning on my dev server.
I know this is the slide part, but there's a question about the docs, and I have an agreement.
You're breaking up. I didn't understand what you said.
I think you and I have a disagreement on where things should live.
Ah, okay.
Probably bring that up as a kind of a design topic, or at least this year.
Sure.
Well, the question was, like, take the network API. Where should that live? And what point does it live in the Crowbar bar clamp under the Crowbar docs, or should it be injected by the network bar clamp in the network docs?
It should. I would think it should be in the network bar clamp under the network docs. No, Chris didn't misunderstand. I wasn't thinking. It's my fault. I agree with you, and I told him the wrong thing because I was not thinking it through. It should definitely be in the network bar clamp. That was the whole reason we designed it like that.
Right. Okay. So I will. He's like asking. He's like, I really it should be over here, but Rob's telling me no. I'm like, I think you're right. So okay. Never mind. So we're all good. So as you talk about the dots a little bit, you might want to describe that.
Yeah, that's a good.
I think it's a very crucial important.
You are right. Let me. I think we're going to be. Actually, let's do this. I will come back to docs if we can talk about it at the end of the meeting, because I think it's worth discussing, and then I will make sure that we're in the right spot. That I have the things queued up in the background so I can just show it. So let's talk about other process items that we want to cover besides docs. Are there other items, places where we should be improving or changing the process?
So I think maybe a couple of weeks ago, I suggested that we have some kind of testing strategy document, that, more of a long-term thing that might not necessarily be coupled to any particular bar clamp or repository, but would just be sort of more of an overall document. And I think I suggested that be a wiki page.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense to me. And did we actually set up a page for that on the wiki or not? All right, let's see. Okay, so Adam, let's do this. I put it in the discussion list for next week's topics. So it'll stay in here until Tuesday, and then let's actually what we can do is we can actually draft it online during the design meeting. Does that sound like a reasonable strategy for that? I like that. And I lost my internet connection. Horrible today. Yep, we're definitely on board with that. We just need to document it so everybody understands. Okay. So my wife and dog have returned from their walk in the background. So the other process items, Adam, that's a really good one. Are meeting times still okay for people? Okay. Cool. Okay. Format's working. Etherpad seemed okay, except for me forgetting to turn on the bridge for Surya. Communications seem okay. On the YouTubes?
Yeah, whenever I'm unmuting and talking, and when I'm replaying that video, I'm seeing a lot of noise coming in. So I just wanted to know whether you're hearing a lot of noise.
You're pretty clear for me. The challenge is I'm using a very old school way to do the recording, which is I have everybody else's voice is coming through on speakerphone. And then I'm recording the speakerphone. So if audio quality is poor on the YouTubes, I'll spend some time trying to figure out a less analog approach to recordings.
Okay, then it's fine.
No, that is exactly the feedback I need to hear. If people are. Right. Okay. That's good feedback. I will work to address that. Cool. Other items? All right. So let's move on to planned items, and that'll give us some time to go over the doc stuff at the end. Wow. I'm really having trouble with the Etherpads. Okay. So the dev tool changes are going to be committed. The change in the API prefix plan. Oh, this is a short. This is a short sprint because of the holiday. Sometimes that means that actually more code gets written, but sometimes not. So dev tool changes, API prefix plan. I'm thinking forward on what, a lot of the stuff we're going to accomplish. A lot of what we're trying to do is get the Crowbar 1.5 Betty release buttoned up. So you'll see changes on the Crowbar 1.0 branch. I've been working on this should actually surface. There's some groups API work that should surface. And I'm trying to use that as a testing example, reference case, so you'll see some of that. Greg, so is there something obvious that I'm missing that's coming? Auth will continue.
For the 2.0 stuff?
Yeah, for the 2.0 stuff.
2.0 stuff, no. Because I kind of saw that. You put the auth work, the network work, and then on the API and the work. And then on the YX side, you'll see hopefully soon in the registry KVM tuning enhancements. Hopefully some more bug fixes and the Tuesday tree changes into the Fred trees here coming week. I guess that's about it.
Yep. Okay, and then also the bug fix. Last week, did we capture this? No, we didn't. So we had the feature of the role ordering. Almost forgot that.
Oh, right. So, is that the patch that I wrote?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize you'd taken that.
Yes.
We haven't yet, but we will. Because technically, Nova technically needs it, so if they work without it, probably does. But because we didn't do it. But Nova needs it. And then, technically switch plane too. But, Stu probably won't go along without it. Or well enough, but we should put those in.
Right. Oh, and one of the other things that happened in here is that we merged. We talked about this last time, but no, we talked about it in design. If you have things on Rails 3 and DB branch, I'll do it the right way. Then you should stop. Stop working there. Get those things and move them over to Trunk. So some of the changes that we have, like with the network work here, was done in the Rails in 3, and I don't think it's surfaced yet on Trunk, but it should soon. Yeah, those are most of our things in flight. Judd's back from vacation, so we'll probably see some progress on the CMDB work again, but probably not quite as much. Any blocks or other items where people are held up? Okay. So let me take a minute, since we're running early, and talk about how the docs stuff works. All right, this is the docs tab. This is the docs item in the UI. I'm running in dev mode. Sorry, go ahead. Craig, did you have something else? Okay. It's more important to do sprints, so.
Can you have this box as a sub-item for the help?
Box of sub-items for the help, I'm sorry?
Yeah, when you click help, it comes like a drop-down box.
Oh, and you were thinking to have actually the sub down from the docs here and have these items there?
Yeah.
It's an interesting suggestion. Sure. Yeah, that would make sense. Okay. So the way this works is this table of contents is dynamically generated, and I'll show how in just a minute. But the idea is the documentation is divided into books. I'm in dev mode, so dev mode is showing me some extra details. And it's no surprise if I click down into one of them, I'll go into the developer's guide. The developer's guide is getting the majority of the attention right now. And so if I jump into adding documentation, this one's probably not the best example. Go back to here. We've been moving in Crowbar API quite a bit. And so what you'll see in here is pretty much what you'd expect. This list is reverse ordered right now. I haven't tried to fix that yet. It'll tell you in dev mode. It'll tell you which file the source is, and then it'll show you the documentation. This documentation is sourced in Markdown, and then the children, if it has children, they'll be shown here. And so I could drill into the proposal API and show you the details for the proposal API. So all this is marked down. One of the things that I can do here is I can come over, I can pick export, and it would actually export them as a roll-up document. So export has the benefit of it includes the children. So if I'm at the top level for the developer's guide, I hit export, it will do a deep recursion of the tree and then pull up all the sub-documents. So you can actually export a whole book or a subset or a chapter of a book. None of this is very surprising. This hopefully is exactly what you'd expect the documentation to do. The thing that makes this different is a couple of things. One is that that because it's Markdown, right place. You can come in, and we should actually be able to give links to, so here's the dev guide. If I was interested in the same API page that I was in, here's the proposal API page. GitHub renders it very cleanly because it's Markdown. It automatically will do that. So it's possible for us to cross-link actual pages from the docs into other places. So let me explain how all this works. Okay. So this is my dev tree. Here's Crowbar, the Crowbar bar clamp. In the Crowbar framework directory, there is a doc folder, and in doc there's default. The idea here is ultimately I want to be able to localize. So default is the default language, and then eventually, I haven't enabled this yet, but eventually we'd be able to add other languages and then have those automatically show up as people localize. I find localization is hard to do after the fact, so I take a little bit of time to figure it out. So then inside Crowbar, basically the documents here are the table of contents tree. It's not actually that simple, unfortunately. Because we often don't want our documentation in alpha order, the table of contents is reflected as a Crowbar, as a YAML file. Bear with me a minute because I'm about to make this more complex, and you'll understand why in a minute. So inside of this file, it combines basically the table of contents and using the paths from here. So it doesn't have to strictly be in a nested hierarchy for it to show up, but the file here, Crowbar plus, this is the Crowbar directory. Let me go down to developer guide because it has the most content in it right now. So Crowbar book developers guide, Crowbar book. I need to fix this because this is more confusing than it needs to be. Here's Crowbar dev guide documentation. If you see Crowbar dev guide documentation is this file. Okay. So what basically this file is doing is it's merging, it's pointing down to markdown documents. If you add a plus in here, you can create multiple nesting of directories, which is really handy just to keep the directories from exploding in complexity. By adding an order, you can control the ordering. Otherwise, it's going to revert to alpha. You can also add metadata to control license, copyright information, author, and dates. So if I wanted, if somebody else if I didn't want the author for the API node dev guide to be me, I can update this and I can put Greg here. So when I'm over looking at the documentation here, we can actually attribute the date of update and the person. Whether or not we want to maintain that as a feature, sometimes I think authorship is important, and sometimes I think authorship is confusing. So if you don't want this, I would suggest put multiple, and then leave it at that. But this is the basics of how to build up this table of contents. There is actually a documentation document, but it's not fully populated yet. Here's the point that Greg was bringing up that's really significant. This by itself is not that. It's good, but it's not that important. The thing that makes it really important is when we come into here, and we can actually have each bar clamp bringing in its own documentation, and that's really the purpose with this. So in here, this is the mistake that Greg was talking about. I made is that we don't have it in here yet. There should be a network document. So over here in network, I should have. And I lost my screen share. It'll be back in a second. I should have a reference to the dev guide and the API, and that would fold in over here. So this file is much more sparse. You'll notice that in this case, I'm actually referring to documents in the Crowbar document set, and then I'm adding my own network documents. So this is subtle, but it's important. So in the documentation for the network bar clamp, I have only two content pages. Those content pages are actually located underneath Crowbar document pages. So here's the Crowbar licenses, Crowbar meta page. Over here in the documentation, if I go to master, what you'll see is there's a system licenses, there's a Crowbar framework licenses, and then here's network. The content for this page comes from the network bar clamp from here. And it's woven together dynamically, basically when bar clamps are imported. There's two things that you have to do to make this system work. One is produce the content pages in the bar clamp. That will not make them exposed. Just creating the content pages is not sufficient. To actually include the content page in the table of contents for the UI, what you must do is you must create a YAML file for that bar clamp, and then tell that YAML file where you want it referenced inside of the overall table of contents. So in this case, what's going to happen is the network licenses file is going to show up under these other bar clamp references. So you can use any bar clamp references you want. It'll create stubs if they're not there yet. In this case, this allows us to have a sort of a roll-up licenses file. I lost my screen share again. It allows us to create a roll-up licenses file and roll-up documentations and network APIs and things like that. So what Greg was saying earlier was that in my network area, and I think Chris, I'll leave it to Chris to make this correction, I would actually add, I'll walk through it and then roll it back. I would actually add a dev guide, and then under dev guide I would add API, and then I should have a file. So here's my node. I'll just copy my node file over. Oops, if I could easily drag it, I would. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a file in here. It would be called network.md. So in this case, all doc files need to start with a header like this. That's how it gets the title. So this is the networking API right here. And then I can write all the whatever I need information for that. That creates this stub in here to actually put it in what I want to do. And I love to cheat for this. I actually want to go all the way down into here. So I would do something like this. Here's the dev guide. I don't need anything except the reference material. So here is the dev guide API subsection. And now, this is all the Crowbar references. Now I have a network, dev guide, API, network. So this link right here refers to the file I just added, right? Network, dev guide, API, network. So this would now bring up, oops. And then I could actually control the order if I wanted. This would allow me to actually control where this file shows up. And if I save this and add it into the system, over here it's going to Developer's Guide. It would show up under Crowbar API, and there would then be a section that would say Network. And then here it would tell me, basically give me that path location. That's the P for path. It shows me my order. And if I'm looking at the main documentation file, it'll also tell me the parenting. P is for parent in this case, so that you can do a cross-reference. That was like a blazing review of how the documentation stuff works, but hopefully helpful. Cool. Did I lose everybody? Did I put everybody to sleep on that? I did a separate video on how to add for this, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to expand the documentation, and help make it simpler. I'm open to suggestions. We're still at a point where it's not hard to tweak it a little bit. Greg had asked when he saw this why I used pluses instead of just making the path in the Crowbar YAML. The reason I use pluses has to do with the way these pages are set up. This is actually the path this is the Crowbar YAML reference. And slashes here would potentially create some, I don't know, I need to look at that. I might be able to work it out so I can actually use a slash here. I'll play with routes and see if I can make that happen. That would actually be really cool. All right, so I have a little bit of play to do with the documentation system. Other comments, questions, concerns? Cool. Okay. All right, with that, everybody, I will sign off the call and talk to you guys next Tuesday for design session, and then Thursday for the next sprint planning.